and call the meeting. Eddie, you still there?
Yes.
Okay. Eddie, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is about 5:36 p.m. this evening. And I tell you, out of the 30 years or so I've been in office, I've never had this kind of thing come up as not only in our city, as our county, but also in our nation, this difficult time with this virus. So Eddie, if it's okay, I kind of gonna put you on the spot. I'd like to start this meeting off with a prayer, if that's okay. And
Amen.
Alderman Robertson, would you do that?
I'll be glad to. Let us
Okay.
pray.
All right.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today, dear Lord, and we ask your blessings upon us, our families, and our city and our nation. Especially at this time, God, we have so many questions. We have so many concerns, and at times we are gripped with fear. But we pray, dear Lord, by your Son, Jesus Christ, that we know that we have hope, that you are the master of the universe, the Alpha and Omega. And we just depend upon you. We ask for your wisdom, your guidance, dear Lord. Help us to do nothing in this city that is contrary to your will and purpose, dear God. Help us, dear Lord, and our citizens, dear Lord, to come through this virus, dear Lord. We pray that you'll squash this plague that's hit our nation and the world. Now, dear God, we pray for wisdom. We pray for protection for our first responders, our firemen, our policemen, our EMTs. Dear Lord, watch over them. We pray for our medical personnel, dear Lord, that are ministering to those that are sick. Heal this land, oh God, and touch us individually, dear Lord, and bring us closer to you during this time. In Jesus' name we pray, and we all said,
Amen.
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 Good
All
job,
right.
Eddie.
Thank you very much, Alderman Robertson. I appreciate it very much. Under our meeting tonight, we have several items, but we're probably not ready for most of them. There are two items we definitely need to get with, and possibly three depending on how the length of the meeting. And the two are this evening is the repaving of what's that Glenbrook Way, that road, the road in front of Glenbrook.
Glenbrook Way between New Shackle and Andrews Run.
Right, between Andrews Run and Gallatin or New Shackle Island Road. And the other is the funding that we have gotten from the state for $1.3 million. We as a committee need to discuss this and be prepared to discuss it at our next meeting, as well as to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And then also Alderman Edwards is with us tonight, and if we might be able to go through the trash issue will be great as well. I know the trash cans, I know that's an issue that he was concerned about, and I think we've got some information on that. So Marshall, you might be able to enlighten us a little bit. So we're going to dispense with the minutes of the next meeting, and we'll address those minutes at our next meeting next Tuesday night. So without any further ado, let's go ahead. Does anybody have an issue with the meeting at that point? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and discuss it. Marshall, let's go ahead and talk about the thing that's probably a no-brainer, is about the Glenbrook Way, the paving of it.
Yeah, Tina, can you allow me to share? Can I share my screen? Are you?
Absolutely. 1 second.
Okay.
Hello there, Andy.
Hey, how are you, Mark?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Really?
Yeah.
Good to see you guys.
You now have host controls and are able to share.
Okay, Marshall, you're ready to go.
Okay. Can y'all see a spreadsheet in Excel on the screen?
I don't.
No, sir.
No, I do not.
All we can see is your beautiful daughter.
Yeah.
And she is beautiful.
Okay. What about
Here
now?
it comes.
There
There
you
you
go.
go.
Hey,
It is.
You got it, Marshall.
I wanted to just real quick, hopefully this will be quick, take you through what we want to do as far as paving on Glenbrook, and also this includes some work on Laverne Circle. But I'll first start with Glenbrook and kind of take you through what I have on the spreadsheet. We've been kind of given the charge by Dave to kind of to limit the use of general funds, and obviously that is the supplemental paving when it comes to paving streets. And so what that leaves us with is the state street aid, which is the gas tax. And Robert I've gotten a lot of these numbers from Robert, but he can chime in if they're incorrect. But we currently have about $350,000 in this year's budget in state street aid currently just for paving. And obviously we have spent some money this year in state street aid, but right now to date, we have about $350,000 in the line item for paving. Looking at last year's state street aid money, we have about $720,000. And you go down to the next line, we have about a little over $600,000 that we have paved and not yet paid Rogers Group. And so those are invoices that we either currently have or have not yet received. But that is money that we will have to pay. Looking at, of course, I'm going to skip that one line for Laverne, but the brick pavers, obviously there's 3 areas on Glenbrook Way where we have pavers. We have worked with a developer that we're going to use the money in escrow to help replace those pavers. We obviously, when we do that, we want to look at not only replacing the pavers, but paving the remaining portion of Glenbrook Way. And so the two numbers you kind of see there, the 234 is a conservative estimate to replace the pavers. We expect it will be less than that. And then you look down the next line, the paving, the remaining portion of Glenbrook is $176,000. And so, and it's another project that obviously Daryl is involved with, and I've talked to Dave about, is Laverne Circle. If you remember, they came back before Public Works last year and expressed a desire to get that paved. And so between the paving and the drainage improvements that we need to make out there, it's about $340,000 project. Kind of the numbers are represented there between those two accounts, but all said and done, when you add up all the money we owe Rogers Group and what we're going to have to pay for paving of Laverne and the remaining portion of Glenbrook, and using this year's money and last year's money in state street aid, not touching the supplemental paving in the general fund, we have about $150,000 left in state street aid. Now that will mean we will have to do an appropriation for the money in last year's in the money last year in state street aid to move that into this year's budget. But I've tried to, well, I know it may be kind of hard to follow, but I've tried to explain kind of what those numbers represent and where we're spending our money. But it's all kind of presented there in that spreadsheet.
All right, thank you, Marshall. All right, committee, was there anything else, Marshall, you wanted to say on this particular item?
One thing I did want to point out, and I think it's kind of obvious to everyone, is doing that work at Glenbrook is a very opportune time considering the coronavirus, and the majority of those shops over there are closed except for, of course, a few of them. But the traffic, there will never be probably another time there'll be this amount of traffic that we'll ever have to encounter. So I think it's very appropriate that we go ahead and do the Glenbrook project.
All right, thank you. Okay, committee members, does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir. Alderman Robertson.
Marshall, thank you for bringing Glenbrook to us for work. I think that it provides us a unique opportunity since almost half of the money, or over half, is in escrow that won't cost the city anything. The second thing is that Glenbrook is the second leading revenue source for sales tax in the city. And I've been concerned for some time of some of the smaller businesses and even some of the larger ones leaving Glenbrook. I think this investment in the infrastructure of Glenbrook will maybe motivate those businesses to stay when they see the city is investing. And also, as you said, what a more appropriate time to not cause problems with businesses trying to bring traffic in and out. So I just think that it's a golden opportunity for the city. It's also an opportunity to let those businesses know that we're going to invest in your facilities with new infrastructure. And I hope that what this will do will give a shot in the arm to Glenbrook to keep those existing businesses and maybe even attract some businesses to look, hey, well, let's try out Glenbrook. They've just put some new roads in their new infrastructure. So I just want to applaud you, and I support the effort 100%. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Robertson. Appreciate that. Alderman Campbell, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that I know we've looked at this for quite a long time and talked about it, and we do need to move forward with Glenbrook improvements, moving those pavers out and fixing the road. And I agree with that. Once it's all said and done, we'll still have $1 million. We have an amount currently of supplemental paving in the general fund of $1 million. So will that be after state street aid and everything used? Marshall will still have that $1 million sitting in the general fund for paving?
Yes, my kind of direction now is to try to use all the money I can
Mm-hmm.
from state street aid and
Yes,
not use supplemental paving. If
the
possible.
general fund money, sure. I would agree with that because where we're at right this moment, we just don't know long term where we'll be at next month, and we need to that we look at that. So yes, I agree with that. Let's move on with Glenbrook and get that taken care of, get those pavers out of there, and do what we can with the money we have in straight street aid. Sure enough.
Can I clarify something, Marshall?
All right, thank you. Any of the other Alderman Bolt or Alderman Hayes, I don't know if you're still with us. I can't see you on the screen. Do you, or the mayor, do you all have any comments on this issue?
Mr. Chairman, I have something. I'll echo Eddie's or Alderman Robertson's sentiments. I drive on those cobblestones practically every day, and it's terrible driving over those brick cobblestones. Yep. I think we need to get moving on this. Marshall, I had a question on line 14 on your spreadsheet where it says removing brick pavers. Explain to me again that 200,000 in escrow.
The city currently has 200,000 in escrow from the developer, and then I kind of compare this to like a letter of credit. It's maybe a little different term, but like a letter of credit, and that we're gonna kind of call that or use those funds. And I've been in communication with the developer and the representation for them for several months, and they're aware that we're going to use that. So we're going to be able to utilize those funds to help replace these pavers. And this is, it's probably maybe before you were here, Russ, but several.
Yeah, I'll be able to explain that. Yeah,
it's probably been a couple years ago, maybe a couple years ago, Mark, that we kind of went through the acceptance process, and this decision was made to remove the pavers at that time, and you can use that.
That's correct.
But
what happened, Alderman Edwards, was that it actually started under another administration, a mayoral administration, and I was asked, along with our former public works director, to go to the Business Owners Association over at Glenbrook, and they decided to let us handle this situation because there was a sickness with one of the major players in Glenbrook, And I don't know if he's passed on or not, but I know that he's in a nursing home now. And so we agreed with Pinnacle Bank, who had the money in escrow, and they agreed to allow us to go ahead and fix the road. The pavers that are in question this evening, we had decided to replace those because they were actually more, as you well stated this evening, they were more of a hindrance. They looked good, you know, but they were more of a hindrance on the road and the people who drive on that road every day and every night to go, you know, to the respective places. And so we decided to, and having the alderman of Ward 6 at that time, and this has been about, oh gosh, 3 years ago, we asked them what they felt about removing the pavers because we felt that it was a good thing, and they agreed to take the pavers out. So that's where we are, and they released the money to us, and we're able to do it now.
So is 200,000, is that all we can use out of that escrow, or can we tap into any more?
No, that was the money that was left in escrow for the paving of that area.
Yeah.
So we're using all of the escrow money.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
that's a great question to ask, but we are using that. So,
All right, I appreciate it.
These pavers, Russ, these pavers were a great idea 20 years ago.
Yeah,
But it didn't work out so well.
it's horrible. Yeah.
Mayor Fuquay, he loved the idea of pavers, and we did this, and it was really nice for a while, but just long term, it's turned out to be not the right solution for us.
Right, I agree.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
Jim Waters. Sorry I'm late, but
Oh, that's okay. It's good to see you this evening.
Good to see you, Mr. Waters. Hadn't seen you in months. Good to see you.
Come on. You're making me feel good. Good to see everybody, but I had trouble getting in here, and I called my cohort to get me in, but he's busy. I got behind on this Glenbrook way. So Marshall or Chairman, one of you two kindly rough it over right quick for me, if you don't mind.
Right. Well, what we're doing at this point, Alderman Waters, is we're discussing about moving forward with it. And it looks like we've got a unanimous consent from all the other aldermen. If you want, I've asked all the other aldermen, including the mayor as well, if they wanted to say something about it. We're just making a motion to go ahead and pave this immediately. Start on it.
No, I think it's great. In fact, I think I sent Marshall an email several weeks ago about it's getting springtime, and I believe he made the statement at one of our BOMA meetings that we was going to go with it at spring. And
yes, sir.
I just jumped in here and I heard the good news. So yes, Lord of mercy, it needs to be done now. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Amen.
All right. Okay. Committee members, we've asked the other aldermen, the mayor, if they had any comments about it. Hearing none.
I've got a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I raised my virtual hand, but you may have not seen it. So the spreadsheet, Marshall, I asked you some questions via email, and I think you just answered it via the spreadsheet. So when you say State Street aid money from the previous fiscal year, you're talking about 2018, 2019, right?
That's correct.
Can I answer that?
Yes, that's correct. And I've just, Robert, I need to confirm that the number in the previous fiscal year. I need to get back with Robert and just make sure that that's the correct.
Just out of curiosity, why would we have not spent that during that year?
Say that one more time.
Why would we have had such a large balance from that year, that fiscal year? Why would we have not have made sure we spent all that?
I'm not sure.
Typically grows back. Your fund balance, I'm sorry to break in, but
okay, hold on just a second. Okay, Robert, go ahead. Chair recognizes you.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Fund balance each year, we talk about what's available left over. We have typically around 700 to 750,000 on July 1st. And then due to months of low funding, low income coming in with gas tax and everything, higher usage of paving during the summer, we spend a lot more, and that balance gets eaten into until we get down somewhere in the $300,000 range. Right now, it's at about $500,000, and it usually builds back up by the end of June to somewhere in the $700,000 range every year. It's just kind of a fluctuating amount. So I'm sorry if I misled Marshall on this, but the intent was to say you started at 720, you typically build back up to about 720 each year, depending on where revenues are and what gas prices are and how much travel is going on. So with that to say, you have 5,000 in the bank. The board typically appropriates X number of dollars based upon what they expect to collect and what is in the bank account. You have the option to eat into that fund balance or to only appropriate based upon collection numbers and to keep that fund balance the same. The reason that they didn't spend 720 is carry that number forward, and that's typically what we've tried to keep a revolving, not with intent, but that's where the fund balance has been year after year.
Chairman Skidmore.
All right, thank you very much, Robert. I appreciate that. Alderman
I'm not-
Woodcock.
Yeah,
I'm not done, but unless Jamie's wanting to add something to what we're talking about.
I am.
Yes, Mayor Clary.
Thank you. Robert's predecessor and Marshall's predecessor, for some reason, had an objective to keep $1 million in the State Street Aid Fund. And that's part of the reason. And I can also say that keep in mind, Marshall wasn't the person responsible for spending that money in the previous fiscal year. One other thing, and when you have a chance, Marshall and Robert, give me an idea of what you think we're going to collect in State Street Aid in the next couple months, but I'll turn this back over to Daryl for his other questions.
All right, thank you, Daryl.
So what I was getting at is, so that email, Marshall, you mentioned that we're probably going to have an ordinance to spend that State Street Aid money on Laverne. And two things, every point we made about Glenbrook holds true for Laverne, since it's an industrial area. It's basically a ghost town right now and would be prime time to be paving it as well. So if we do need an ordinance, which is what I'm understanding based on the emails and the conversation today, is there not an action the committee could take tonight to speed that up and get that process moving?
Are you asking, are you asking me or both?
First, I'm asking, do we actually have to have another ordinance passed to spend money that was set aside for paving and on a project that's already been approved? So why do we need to have another ordinance for something that's already been approved on both sides?
I'd be happy to clarify that.
If you would clarify it, and then
you will, if you were to complete this project, you would in essence exceed the yearly appropriated number for the State Street Aid Fund. What you're doing is you're not appropriating a bank fund quite like 720 and you're just giving that out. What you're doing is you're saying that on June 30th last year, you guys approved $2.3 million spent, and you're moving that cap up to eat into the fund balance rather than.
So you're saying that's just a choice we can make, not necessarily have to pass an ordinance?
No, I would say it has to be an ordinance because you are amending the budget to allow for
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
By putting that money forward, I see what you're saying. Even though we passed it as a committee last year, since we aren't actually physically taking the money and spending it, we need to put it in the budget. Is that correct?
Correct. It's an allowability. They have a cap and they will go over there, which legally they can't do. They can't spend over $2,333,000 right now. And to complete this project, they would spend over that.
Okay. Is there an action the committee could take to get moving forward, since a lot of the money is coming from stormwater?
And Daryl, we'll need this money both for Laverne and Glenbrook for both projects. So
yeah, I'm not objecting to Glenbrook at all. All I'm saying is you got two projects with the same issues as far as they're empty right now. So now would be a perfect time to be getting in there and paving, because next month all those industrial companies are gonna be back open. The CrossFit gym's gonna be back open, and it's gonna be a nightmare. So I'm not saying don't do the things you think we ought to do. I'm saying if we need to pass an ordinance, then that ordinance needs to be written today so we can vote on
Yes.
it next week.
Yep.
And get
Oh,
going.
yes, I agree with that. And I hate to interrupt. I usually wait till everybody else, but I agree with Daryl on this because it was our intention last year to move quickly on this project.
Yes, it was.
And please, committee, correct me if you think I'm wrong, and we can debate that and measure on why. But my feeling was when those business owners, along with the aldermen from both aldermen from that ward, came to our committee, they needed the help, and we drove off out there and looked at it, and it's a nightmare. And so we committed not only our votes, but also we committed the money to fund that. And if you all think I'm wrong, please, say, no, that's not the way it went down.
No, you're
But
right.
that's the way that I feel. If we include Laverne Circle in this vote tonight, so we need to go ahead and put an ordinance together to put this on the agenda to vote for it on next
Yeah,
Tuesday.
we can take care of that.
Yes.
Okay, and all right, and okay, now Daryl, you're wanting something that we can say, in a week's time, we're moving on this, right?
Yeah. I mean, that business association, they're blowing me up basically every day, wanting to know, where we
Okay.
stand. And I've been confused on what to tell them because we voted. And so I thought
Yes,
it was
sir.
done.
All right.
And now if we need another vote, I just want that done. Let's do it. I'm sponsored. If no one else wants to sponsor, whatever you need from me,
I'll join you.
Yeah, we'll get the sponsors and everything together with that. I feel strongly that, of course, we're not talking about votes or anything, but I feel strongly it will pass the full board because it is a necessity. Both projects are very necessary for the city of Hendersonville.
Yeah.
Chairman Skidmore,
Yeah.
I just want to say that we'll have that on the next agenda. We will have that, and you and Mr. Campbell and all three of you can sponsor it. But we're gonna get that moving forward. We're gonna make that happen.
Okay, we'll do that. All right. Does anybody?
Let me make a motion. Let's get a motion then. Don't you think we need a motion?
Sure.
Mr.
At the
Absolutely.
end, we will.
At the
Yeah.
end? Okay, well,
Yeah,
you tell me
yes.
when you're ready.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Excuse me for butting in here, but I come
Yes,
in
sir.
late and back on the Glenbrook.
Yes, sir.
Was the date set when we're gonna start on that before
We are getting ready to discuss the date now.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Hey, for coming in late, you're right on the ball, Alderman Waters.
No, I'm enjoying this. Come on.
All right. Now, Marshall, let's talk about what we're going to do when the paving, we get this thing done. Are we going to start immediately on projects when this gets past the Board of Mayor and Aldermen? If it does pass, which I'm sure that it will, but in light of, say, passage by the board, when will we start on this?
If it's okay with you, the pavers, I talked to Rogers Group this afternoon, and the pavers, they can start work next week removing the pavers.
Okay.
And the one part I was unsure about was the remaining portion of Glenbrook, but it sounds like, we're going to be able to move forward with paving the remaining portion of Glenbrook. So I will contact them tomorrow and let them know that all of Glenbrook will be paved and to plan on that. But the first part of that is the pavers being taken out next week. And then I'll talk to them about Laverne Circle as well.
All right, what we'll do then, Alderman Woodcock, we'll have you more of a definitive answer before our meeting next Tuesday of exactly when Laverne will start. Is that okay?
But that's okay. But to be clear, the vote will be next week.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
For the first reading.
First reading.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Now, Alderman, not Alderman. I apologize, Jamie. I must be getting senile. Mayor Clary, you had two questions or at least one question for Robert and Marshall.
Yeah.
And they had not answered that. Do you all want, or can you all answer that question for the mayor at this
Yeah,
point,
what-
or do you need it repeated?
What do you-
Marshall or Robert?
What do y'all anticipate us bringing in revenue and State Street aid for the next 2 months?
That's,
Yeah, June's probably a hard one, but what is our average monthly?
It has been in the past around 150,000 a month, but when the problem is budgets have not lowered for revenue collection due to when gas prices go down, our collection of it goes down, the tax on it goes down. When nobody's traveling for social distancing and everything, that's going to take a huge hit.
And both those things happened. Gas prices went down and people aren't traveling.
Exactly. I really don't see us getting above $125,000 for April.
Okay.
And I would imagine we hit around 125 to 130 for May, though I'm totally speculating based upon the governor's plan to reopen everything as best he can, safely as he can. With that being said, it's really businesses that drive this. A good portion of it is our citizens, of course, but it's really businesses sales on gas there that tends to drive it. So pun intended, but I really don't think I see it at least being a 30% drop.
Okay. Our lag time in sales tax is 2 months. What's our lag time? Yeah, sales tax,
We just have 1 month. It's we get it by the 20th, so we'll know April by May 20th.
Okay.
We got March. We got March to give it.
All right. Marshall, do you have anything, or did he? I think he might have answered the question for you. Actually.
Yeah, I would expect it would be lower just because people aren't traveling. It'd be lower than what we normally do.
Okay, Mayor, do you have any other comments on that?
I appreciate it. No, I think I'm good right now.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And Alderman Bolt, did you have anything?
Well, just real quickly, in the general meeting last week, we talked about the impact of loss of sales tax. And, Robert and I were talking about maybe 20%. Here's another place where we're going to be losing some money because of gas prices and whatnot. It'll be interesting to hear from finance in the future about all the different places that we may be affected by this downturn. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bowe. That's a good comment and really good food for thought that everybody that's in the meeting tonight about where's that lost revenue going to come from and how it is going to affect our city as a whole. So I appreciate your comments, Alderman Bowe. All right, Alderman Hayes, if you're still with us, do you have any comments or anything? Hearing none. All right, not a problem. Well, listen, now, is there anyone else that has a discussion on this particular part of our agenda?
Mr.
Dave,
Chairman?
do you have anything?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. Dave's here.
Yes, sir. Do you have any comments or questions on this?
Yeah. I just want to make sure we're in a situation financially that everybody knows about. I want to make sure from Marshall's standpoint that if we do Glenbrook and the pavers and completely pave Glenbrook Way and we get out to Laverne Circle, that we'll have enough money to cover that out of State Street aid and not touch that $1 million in the supplemental paving because we have no idea what this COVID-19 is going to do to our budget.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed. Good point.
Marshall, you want to answer that?
Right. I think the question was, yeah, my intention is not to use any money from the general fund up to this point. And so.
Yes, Marshall and I had discussed that very question, Dave. To be honest with you, it was a real good question because that was the first thing that came into my mind too. And Marshall ran the numbers, and correct me, Marshall, if I'm wrong, but I think we were going to be okay on it. We weren't going to be great, but we were going to be okay if we were able to do these two projects where we wouldn't touch any of the other monies that coming out of general fund.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's what I want to make sure right now until we get back to whatever the new normal is and find out you know, as far as the revenue projections and the gas tax and so on and so forth, and all the other taxes and supplemental income that we may get revenue stream, I want to make sure that we have enough to cover what's going on in the budget right now. So as long as the stormwater and the money in escrow and the money that's coming from 2 years ago that we haven't spent will cover these paving projects, I'm okay with it. I just don't want to dip into the general fund right now until we can see where we're going to be when we come back.
I agree with you, Dave, and that's an excellent point. I will say this, for if Daryl is still on with us, I will say this, we may be able to even dip into the stormwater drainage fund on Laverne Circle, because some of the problems up there that are on Laverne definitely are because of water, of drainage issues. So, but we won't know until we really get into it. So there may be, you know, there might be a silver lining in that cloud up there, Daryl. I mean, excuse me, Alderman Woodcock.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
want to let you know that. That may very well may be the case. Is there any further discussion on this, committee members?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
talking about the stormwater utility money. Yes, sir. I think for the pitch of the road and things of this nature, to do the new searching on Laverne Circle to get the proper pitch for drainage off that road into the ditches, that would give us the reason for using stormwater utility money, from what I've learned over the years of dealing with this.
Well, I agree with that. And I just, in response to that, I remember you saying that at our last meeting when we were talking about Laverne Circle, that was perfect, because I had not even looked at it that way. And so I'm glad you did.
It pulls in the center instead of running off to the sides.
Yes,
like
it
you're saying.
does. Sure does. Alderman Roberson, anything? Anything else on this first one?
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
For Robert or Marshall, and then I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
We talked a lot about the State Street aid. We talked about the escrow. What is the balance in the stormwater fund at the city? Because we're planning on spending $250,000 of that on the Laverne. So I just want to make sure, you know, that we have plenty of money in the stormwater reserves for this purpose.
We do. I'm sorry, Marshall, if you would like to answer.
I don't have that number. I don't have that number on the tip of my tongue.
We can get, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go ahead and get that for you before first reading, probably Tuesday night. But I would say, well, we could actually get it to you tomorrow, because I mean, it's relatively, I think Robert's has got to look it up, and when he gets to the office, or I don't know how that's working now, or when you go in, but just
Robert
by
got it
Tuesday,
now.
Robert or Marshall, both, if you could get that information for Alderman Robertson, it'd be great. I think it's a substantial amount.
Yeah, we have well over $250,000. I know Robert will agree with that. Well over $250,000.
Yes, it will be about 1.5 million.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
We got enough
I
money
can
to do
assure
it.
you it'll be over $1 million.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
I had to answer that. So I'm ready for a motion if you are, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
next
Yes,
week's
sir.
meeting, is it Zoom or public, face to face?
Say again.
Our next meeting, is it the BOMA meeting? Is it Zoom or is it going to be at City Hall like normal?
Zoom.
It's going to be Zoom.
Really?
I don't like it.
Okay. All right.
Really?
Mr. Gilly, did you have something? Director Gilly?
Yes, sir. On the pavers,
Yes, sir.
this would be for Alderman Robertson or Marshall. There had been talk in the past of using those pavers when we took them up for the first responders memorial. I wanted to make sure if that was supposed to still happen, or
Good
I hadn't heard
question.
anything about that.
Good question. How about that, Alderman Robertson and Alderman Waters?
No,
Well,
it was for Marshall or Alderman
Or
Robertson.
excuse me, Alderman or Marshall?
Right now, when we remove the pavers, they're going to be stored behind the fuel pumps. I don't know. I'm just not exactly sure. You know, we're going to be, of course, be as careful as we can, but I don't know what kind of damage those pavers will encounter when we take those out. But we'll try to keep them in good condition to be reused.
Let me
Well,
respond to that.
go
as
ahead.
well.
All right.
We have had a generous donation from one of the city vendors, thanks to one of the aldermen on this call, to provide concrete, free concrete for the first responders memorial. So I guess it will be a decision, Andy, that you and Marshall and the Rotary Committee will make, whether aesthetically it would look better to have, it all concrete, brushed concrete, or pavers and concrete. So that's a decision that will be made. Plus, if the pavers are in good enough shape. So that decision hadn't been made yet.
I just wanted to make sure that they weren't just gonna bust them up.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll make sure, we'll ask Marshall to try to save as many of those from in the Rogers group, because I know they've taken out a bunch.
Yeah.
So they know how to do that, and we'll ask them to save as many of them as they can. And we'll just see, when you all make the decision that Alderman Robertson was discussing, and then what you want to do and how it needs to be built, we'll see what we have. That would be the only thing that I can tell you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? John, Alderman Hayes, you have anything?
I'm all good with it. Thank you.
Sounds great. I need a motion.
All right, I have a motion that I think will please all of Boma, especially my friends in Ward 5. So
all right,
the motion that I have to make is to move forward on the removal of pavers and the paving of Glenbrook, and also move forward on Laverne with the paving and the stormwater improvements on those projects as presented tonight by Public Works Department, and I so move.
Second.
All right, there's been a proper motion, and I need a second.
Second.
And there's been a proper motion by a proper second by Alderman Campbell. All right, is there now for discussion again on this? Is there any further discussion on the motion?
No, sir. I'd just like to say that we did vote on this a year ago when we talked
Yes.
about the Laverne Circle and everything. It's sort of just like.
You are correct, but
again, so.
as a matter of law, since it's
Yeah.
turned over on, to 2020, we have to re-vote on it.
Sure.
I don't think anybody was going
I
to.
still support it 100%. Let's go.
All right. All right. There's been a motion and a proper second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Everyone's ready to vote. Does anybody need the motion repeated? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion for a Laverne Circle and Glen Brook
Chairman, Chairman
Yes.
Skidmore, you have to do a roll call vote.
Okay, not a problem. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Is everyone ready to vote? Is anybody? All right, all in favor signify with a roll call vote on how they will vote. So here we go. Alderman Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you. Alderman Robertson.
Yes.
And the chairman, Mark Skidmore, votes yes. So it's a unanimous vote. Thank you all for this discussion on this. So it passes unanimously on to be placed for further discussion on our Tuesday meeting for some informational purposes. And also we want to move forward this to the Board of Mayor and Alderman.
Thank you,
So
Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Woodcock, what I would do is I would let your people know where we are on it. We're a couple of steps away from it being reality, and we'll get all the information that you need by Tuesday's meeting. Alderman Waters and Alderman Robertson, I would let your people know that it's a reality, and we passed it tonight. And
Thank you. Thank you.
We're about 2 steps away from getting it done.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Mr. Chairman.
now, thank you very much for everybody. We've got another issue to come about, and that is the issue of the grant from, I guess, from the state of Tennessee. I don't know if the federal government had anything to do with this. We might have Marshall tell us exactly how this came about, or maybe the mayor might, if Marshall doesn't know, of the $1.3 million influx of, I guess, cash that came to the city from the coronavirus grant or funding. So go ahead.
Yes, I'm gonna try to share shared with you, it's kind of a snapshot of the information we received from the state. There's obviously certain categories that we can spend this money in, and some of you probably have already seen this before, but just kind of go over it again. There's a list of 6 items, and obviously a lot of these kind of touch public works and kind of what we do. And I just wanted to kind of open it up for discussion. Anyone had any ideas on where they'd like to kind of see that money spent? Obviously, every department in the city, I think, probably desires to have a little bit of this money. Kind of considering that, kind of just thinking about a portion of what we could, what we could spend that
All
money
right.
on with Dave.
Did everybody understand Marshall on that? All right, Mayor, do you want to have anything, do you want to talk about this? I mean, in terms of where it actually came from and everything?
Sure. A lot of this, I mean, next time you see Governor Haslam, that has a lot to do with it, as well as our state representatives, state senators, that have been very conservative with the state budgets. And a lot of criticism they were getting for a couple of years about not spending all this money and not putting in some social programs. Boy, they didn't spend all that money. It's certainly been helpful. You'll see Marshall mentioned the different categories of this. One of them is repaving. There are some exclusions of items that we cannot use it for. It'd be very easy to apply for this money 100% for repaving, and then change the way that we spend what has gone from our general fund to supplemental paving. If it's very explicit right now in the grant application that repaving is a use for this. I'm not saying that we should add $1.3 million to our repaving budget for next year. Right now, this fiscal year, we've got about $3.3 million between state street aid and supplemental paving. I'm not saying we should end up with 4.6. What I'm saying is, if we went ahead and designated this whole 1.3 for paving for next year, then we should certainly look at what we're spending in the general fund and reduce that for some other projects. To me, it's the same thing. It's 6 one, half dozen the other. Is if we want to use this 1.3 for 14 different projects, I still think we should designate it for paving and then use the general fund money for the other projects.
All right, thank you.
It's just cleaner that way, I guess.
No, I think one thing I do need to do as a matter of the rule or procedure, I need to get a motion. I know we just jumped on this because this Zoom thing is all new to me as well. So I need, if I could get a motion to discuss this, that'd be great.
Make a motion to discuss it.
Okay, I need a second.
3 million.
Second.
Okay, there's been a proper motion and second. All right, now we're legal. Okay, does anyone, well, the committee's already, Alderman Robertson, do you have anything? Do you want to say anything about this? Because I know you asked this as well. We were going to discuss it anyway, but I know you asked for it to be placed on the agenda.
Yeah. So I've got a question for Dave.
Okay, Dave.
Dave, it's my understanding that you've asked the department heads for some kind of brainstorming on some ideas. How far along are you in that process, and when are you going to be able to share that information with us?
What I've asked at the Public Safety Committee last week and the General Committee, I asked those two committees to ask their department heads in their respective committees to look at some items that might qualify for what's on the screen. I've got the same copy here. I'm looking at the same copy. Example, IT, police department, fire department. They've all looked at this and are putting some requests together for some of those monies out of that 1.3 million. The first 654,000 was the governor gave to each state, each city or local community was 654,000 for Hendersonville. When this COVID-19 hit, he doubled it. So that's how the city got 1.3 million. And down at the bottom, if you'll see number 6, COVID-19 responses, it's in response would include related items to control, examples of expenses on supplies, equipment, and so on and so forth. So Basically, there was 654,000 that was appropriated at first for various things on this list, 1 through 5. They added number 6 when the COVID hit. And basically that's where we are right now. So each department, Mr. Robertson, is putting together kind of a wish list, okay, if you want to say so. Let's just, the example, police department. Mickey has requested X number of cars in his budget for the general fund. He may request that we take 6 cars out of this, and that'll decrease the general fund budget that we're going to be talking about here in a few weeks. And he can pay for some of those vehicles out of this money here. Chief Bush may take some equipment. IT may take some hardware, some upgrades. If we continue to work from home, they may have to buy more surfaces like this and so forth. So with that being said, each department is putting together here between now and the 28th, a list for you, the staff and myself and the mayor and the alderman to look at to say, okay, this is the wish list. Let's just say we have $2.5 million worth of stuff on that list. We've got to narrow it down to 1.3, and how are we going to decide who gets this? Of course, the easy way would be just to do 1.3 for one item, but I'm not so sure that the departments and the department heads are in favor of that, and neither am I at this point. I'd like to see each department get at this point. So that's kind of where we are right now, Mr. Robinson, if that answers your question.
It does. I've got a couple more questions for you. So when do we expect to receive this money?
Well, we can't even apply for it until the 30th of April. The applications don't even come out until the 30th of April. And when we got a year to apply, and Robert can explain this more, but we've got 1 year to apply for this money. Is guaranteed. We could apply for it in 6 months and we're still going to get 1.3 million. So it's not like it's going to go away, it's going to disappear, or it's something we're not going to get. So April 30th, the applications come out. We apply for the money June 1st. We have a list of things that we want to do. Now, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen must pass a resolution requesting this money from the state. When we do the resolution, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, then we need to have a list for the state saying, okay, you've appropriated 1.3 million to Hendersonville. These are the 8 things that we're going to use it on. And we list the 8 things and we scale it out. This is going to be 250,000. This is going to be 310,000 and so on. But we need to, in the resolution that the board passes to send on to the state with the application, we need to have everything itemized at that point. Am I correct, Robert?
That's correct, based on what I'm in front of me.
So Dave, each department is going to have their wish list, and I know that each department feels that their wish list is a higher priority than another department. So what do you envision your role to be into kind of synthesizing and looking at all of the needs, all of the wish list, and coming up with a recommendation from the staff on the 1.3? Do you intend to do that, or do you just intend to throw out all of these wish lists to us and let us have a free for all?
Well, I don't necessarily want you to have a free for all, Dr. Robertson, and I appreciate that. I think the department heads and myself and the mayor can kind of get our heads together before it comes to the board, so that when it comes to the board, we don't have a free for all. I think that would be the worst case scenario. That now we may decide, okay, Chief Bush wants 20 sets of turnout gear for X number of dollars, and Chief wants 10 cars. Okay, we've got to decide on 15 turnout gears or 8 cars. And so that's the kind of thing we may need to tweak a little bit as far as the bottom line. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to come to you people with $5 million worth of requests from the departments and let you guys fight it out. I think that would be a worst case scenario.
I agree. So I'm glad that's going to be your approach. So Mr. Chairman, the only thing that I see a perfect use of this money would be, and maybe the staff, Dave, you can take this back to the staff and as suggestions. But the parking lot at the police department, I mean, you have to really be careful to dodge the holes there. And also, I think the parks department has some needs for paving, like the tennis courts that they brought to us last year. So I would hope, Dave, that the staff would talk about those 2 particular projects those are two that stand out in my mind that are improvements that we need to make. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But one of the
Thank
things I
you,
like
Alderman.
to do is go ahead and do some projects and get some things out of the way that we wouldn't have had the $1.3 million for in the operating budget, or supplemental paving, or State Street aid. It's get some of these projects out of the way that we wouldn't ordinarily have money to pay for. And those two projects are pretty good ones.
Thank you, Alderman Robertson, and thank you, Dave, or Administrator Lamar. I guess that's what we call it. You've always been a friend of mine, so it's always Dave to me, Mr. Lamar. So,
All good.
all right, buddy. Thank you very much. How about any of the other, Pat, or Alderman Campbell,
Yes.
do you have anything on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was just thinking that the $1.3 million, we need to pull back, do like Dave talking about, give it to the department heads and find out exactly what they would like to add to their budgets with our budget shortfall that possibly will happen. We need to look at that and figure out where we can move things around, cover other items, and utilize the funds that might have been used for that over here, and take care of other issues as they come along. Since we're sort of in an area of not certain economic times right now. I mean, unfortunately, when our economy starts back, I mean, for me personally, I've done one invoice in a month for my business.
Gosh.
And yeah, and I will do a lot of government work, and I do a lot of stuff. But Fort Campbell told me, "Hey, we'll call you." I said, "Okay." Well, I'll wait to hear from them. They could jump right on it, or they could wait 6 months. I don't know, but and I know that affects everybody. So I'm just looking at the economic impact long term. Is it going to fire right back up, and we're going to be okay in 3 months? Or is it going to be 6 months, or is it going to be a year and a half before we get back to where our spending was prior to all this taking place and the numbers going down? So I just think we need to look at those numbers instead of just saying, let's spend 1.3 all over the place right now. Let's get a list with our department heads, formulate it, see where we're at. So we really need to get knocked out and move forward from there. So yes, I'm agreeing with Dave on that. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Alderman Bolt, did you have any? I was just going to, I hate to like all of a sudden just put you out in the cold like that, but do you have any comments or anything that you'd like to make on this, or you want to just think about it, or how do you want to approach it?
Follow up to what Pat said, until we're back to normal, that's going to be a while. And so this optimism that I have that things are going to pick up pretty quickly, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
So we need to plan for not the worst case scenario, but plan for scenarios that, a year from now, we're still coming back, the economy in general.
Amen. I agree with you. That's a good point. Real good point on that. Hey, I was going to ask John or Mr. Bradley.
Yes.
Are we approaching this the right way on dealing with this grant money? As far as not only in committee, but as the board, are we doing that right?
I think you are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I guess, Marshall, what the committee is kind of telling you in a nutshell is to, look through everything in your items in Public Works, come back and let us know, in a satisfactory time for the alderman to take a look and get with Administrator Lamar on this and make sure that we're maybe not asking for a lot, but enough to see what we can do. Because here's my position on this. I think this money needs to be split, and I need to talk to the other chairman of the committees, but the money needs to be split, I think, equitable, because the virus has affected all of us, not just but more importantly, it's affected our first responders and our police and fire department. Yep. And I'm not trying to put down our Public Works, but we're probably maybe second in line as I see this for this. So I think our fire and police we need to really strongly take a look at this, and then also and then coming up second would be our Public Works, because those two departments, or I guess three departments, never stopped. They kept going, and they're still going to this day. So I don't know what the committee, wants to do at this point, except have Marshall take a look at and see what our needs and wants are. Is that about right? And get back with us?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Go ahead.
Jim Waters, let me wake
Yes,
up.
sir.
Let me wake up Attorney Bradley here. You wake, this may
I'm
be
here.
this may be a dumb question, John. 1, 2, the third line. Have you got a copy of this in front of you?
No, I do not, but go ahead, read it to me.
Grants are one-time funding and are to be used on one-time expenses. I know it may be a dumb question, but can you explain to me what that means? What are we saying? Since
We're
you don't
saying
have-
it's a one-time expense. It's a situation we've never had before, Mr. Waters. It's a one-time deal. We're getting this money from the state and it'll never probably happen again, but we can use it within the guidelines that the governor set forth.
Okay.
One time.
I knew
One
asked
time.
right. One time. I was confused about that one-time expenses. That's what confused me, but
It's unusual language, but I get what you're saying. Absolutely.
okay. Thank you, John. Thank you.
And John, does that, it has to be used specifically for specific projects, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's very broad. The projects are very broad. I mean, we've got a lot of leeway in what we can do with this money, but we just need to be careful about making sure we come within those guidelines.
Okay,
That's right.
thank you, John.
That's right.
Mayor Claire, did you have anything further to discuss on this?
You caught me with my mouth full.
Oh, sorry.
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else have any discussion? I think what the committee's guidance is to get with Marshall and Dave, Administrator Lamarb, and let them get together. Scotty, did you have something to add to this or anything?
Yeah, if that's allowable by you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, sir, it is. Go ahead.
So the only thing I was going to say is there's a lot of folks that weren't around in 07 when the economy took the downfall that it did. Got a lot of new department heads, and back to Mr. Roberson's question, I think it's going to be a team mentality that helps facilitate this for Mr. Lamarb. Basically backing up what you're saying. Everybody's got to go into it with a conscious mind that we're going to get some of it. One agency may get a little more than another, but at the end of the day, we've got to go after this and not try to. I think each agency, like you said, each department deserves some of this money. To what level? That's up to you folks. I mean, there's expenses everywhere across the board with everything, especially now with the COVID-19. So the team mentality is something all department heads are going to have to recognize, like we did in 07, and focus on what's important, and that's the unity of the city and what's best for the city. And I'll be quiet.
You're fine, and thank you, Chief, because very well spoken. Very well spoken, and I agree with you 100%.
Chairman Skidmore, I was going to say one thing, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir, by all means, Alderman Edwards.
I just think the earliest time that we need to even consider passing a resolution would be simultaneously with the budget. There's just so many moving parts, and I just think it's so intertwined with the budget. I mean, I have no idea what we're going to vote on, so I think that should be the earliest time that we need to pass any kind of resolution to use this $1.3 million.
Well, I think that's true. My response to that, and if any other committee members want to chime in, that's cool. I agree with you, and we've got certainly enough time to really look at this. We can't even apply, I think, until April 30th, and I think Mr. Lamarb is going to be doing all that to apply it to, as far as getting everything together, application. But we'll still have time to do that. But I think you're probably right, because it plays a role with our budget and how we're going to entertain things. So I agree with you, and I think that would be a proper time as far as I'm concerned. But it'll more than likely be up to the board to decide what we do. At least that's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, comment on the Alderman Edwards
yes
thought. And I would agree that it makes sense that they be conjoined, unless the state is going to be passing out the money first come, first served.
No.
And I don't know how the state
It's
will
not.
be,
No.
how the state will be releasing that money. So that would be my only condition, that I would like to be. In other words, I'd like to get in the first batch get in line first. First is with the mostest, I guess, if that's appropriate. And I don't know if it is or not.
Dave, do you know how that rolls? Because it was my understanding we've already got the grant, the money's been has been earmarked for Hendersonville.
Yeah,
Correct.
We've just got to apply for it.
Yeah, the 1.3 is guaranteed for the city of Hendersonville, and we've got like a year to apply for it. And Eddie's comment, and I agree with that. We can apply for it earlier, later, depending on when we need the money. I don't think there's a first come, first serve. The money is going to be available to the cities after the applications are sent into the state and they're approved for what monies that the 1.3 million that we send the application in for, and with the list of items that we're going to do, and then the state approves it, then they process the thing. I do agree with Alderman Edwards. I think that's a great idea, especially during this such uncertain time that we really don't know the next 4, 6, 8 weeks of the budget, kind of where things are going to play out. We may still, we may still have to work at home 8 weeks from now, and we may have to buy, let's just say, 6 more computers for people to work at home. And that's the number one thing on the list, permitted IT hardware. So there are some things in here that we don't really know until we get a budget, until we get in these situations with the money. And I agree with both you, Eddie, and Mr. Edwards, that this might be a good way to wait till the workshop and the budget process. But the money is guaranteed, Eddie, and we're going to get it just once we apply for it and list the things we're going to do, turn it in, and they'll process the check.
Thank you, Mr. Edelmarv. I appreciate that. Any other further discussions on this?
Hey, I would just like to add, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I just sent Alabama the breakdown for each city from the website, from the governor's website. So you'll be able to see exactly what we're guaranteed. I did send that to all Alabama members as we were speaking.
Oh, great. I appreciate that because I
Thank
wanted
you,
to
Steve,
see.
for doing that.
All right. Any from the committee, anything? How about any of the other aldermen, Alderman Hayes? Bold?
Good. I'm good.
I don't think if there's no objection, I really don't think that there's any discussion that's needed on this particular, about the grant at this point. When we come back with some more definite ideas of what the committee, or not only the committee, but the Public Works and the rest of everybody wants to talk about it, we'll probably have to obviously vote on it then. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none. I tell you what, we've got a few more minutes before this thing's about over, and I hope that Alderman Campbell will forgive me, but
You're good.
we have thank you, Pat, or Alderman Campbell. We have one issue that we at least need to talk about just a minute. And Alderman Edwards, are you still here available?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. We wanted to talk about the trash can situation.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is nothing urgent. This is just something I've had in mind for a while, and I've spoken with Marshall about this. And I don't know if other aldermen have problems in their areas, but Ward 3, we've had problems, especially in the area that does not have a homeowners association, with people leaving their trash out for too long. I've had some complaints, not a lot, but Tina, I don't know if you're able to put where I can show my screen. Oh, here it is. Okay, here it is. I appreciate this. Yeah, Marshall did this research on some surrounding cities and comparable cities ordinances that address this, and it looks like we might be one of the last cities that does not have anything that addresses it. I emailed this to the committee members, the Public Works Committee.
Hello.
I can share it with all of BOMA. And I personally like Franklin's idea or their ordinance that has, but I would propose maybe to modify this. I would like to get some input from others. They have it where you put at the curb, you can't put at the curb before 7 p.m. the night before, and you have to remove it by 7 p.m. the night of. I personally I think 7's a little bit too late. I like 4:00 p.m. the day before and remove it by 7 p.m. the day they pick up trash. but I have not drafted any kind of ordinance. I'd like to get some input from others before I even draft an ordinance and submit it. I'll probably submit it to Public Safety and Public Works. To see, I don't know if
I think that's a
John?
good idea, Alderman Edwards. I think that's a good idea. People don't like to see those cans out there
Right.
like that. I think that's a good idea. I'll draft an ordinance to do that.
Well, let's see what others want to do. I mean, there's some areas of Ward 3 where they leave their trash out all week.
Yeah,
So-
well, that's the same in Ward 1, so I think that's
Right.
about, that could be a lot of everywhere.
So
Well, what's
Alderman Edwards, what would you envision the penalty would be?
Thank
Well,
you.
see, I don't know. That's a good question. It'd probably get a warning. I would think you would get a warning first, and I doubt we want to, I don't think it's a good idea to immediately cite them to come into city court. Probably get a warning and at some point cite them to come into city court and perhaps a $50 fine.
That's the maximum. The maximum fines. The maximum fine is $50, but court cost is over $100. So, but I would agree with you. I think we would at least give a couple of warnings before we start citing people in the city court on this. And I'd like to hear what the board thinks about it. But I think 1 or 2 warnings for sure.
Right.
Well, I tell you what, why don't we do this, Russ, or Alderman Edwards? It's first of all, it's great to see our vice mayor come in. Hello there. All right, but why don't we have John?
Is she Zoom bombing?
Yeah, she's Zoom bombing.
Somebody did that.
I've heard of that.
That's the first I've heard
Hey,
that term.
Alderman Edwards, why don't we do this? Let me get with John on this. And we'll talk to some of the other aldermen privately, because I think that is a great idea. Because I have seen a lot of them during the day that they're out there. Some of them are out there for days,
Yeah,
I've
right.
seen them. And let's see what we can do about coming up with something. You and Arlene, Vice Mayor Cunningham talked. I don't know if y'all talked about it. Y'all talk about it. We'll have Pat Campbell talk about it with Alderman Sprouse, and then also with we'll have Alderman Roberson talk about it with Alderman Waters. And
Chairman Skidmore, we're not going to violate the sunshine law.
Okay, that's fine.
So that's why I wanted it for discussion tonight.
Well,
to maybe,
Yeah, talk to me about it, not to each other.
We'll go through John.
We've never violated sunshine law in the
Never.
city of Hendersonville anyway, so.
Mr. Chairman.
I noticed there's no laughing about that, but that's all right.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Waters is laughing.
Yes.
No, not
sir,
yet.
Alderman Waters.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm just reading Alderman Edwards's chart here.
All right.
I think maybe, especially over where I live, it's worse. It's bad. It's
Right.
they put them out. They empty them today, and they'll be there next week, the day before they come and get them again. So, but I'm concerned about fines and about warnings and stuff like that. I'm against it. I feel confident just putting out emails to my people over here and talking to them. I don't mind talking to them. They want to get mad, they can get mad. But when you start talking about fines and warnings and stuff like this, that's too much. I think back when we voted on the cutting the grass out in the street. Oh, what a big deal that was, and today, just today, I'm glad it's come up, because just today I saw a guy on a bicycle right here on Southburn. He slipped on grass and he got hurt. But that just goes back to show you, they could put the grass out there in the street. We can't stop them. And I know this is a good ordinance or resolution that Alderman Edwards is talking about, but let's just talk about it in a meeting before we do it. Thank you.
All right. Well, Alderman Edwards, why don't we do this? Let's ask, we'll get in touch with all the other aldermen and tell them to get with John on this and develop an ordinance. And then we'll just throw it up at the Board of Mayor and Alderman and discuss it then. How's that sound?
That sounds good. And for the record, like I said before, I don't think, I wouldn't want to sponsor an ordinance that has it where you have to you can't put it out before 7:00 PM the night before.
Okay.
I think
John,
4
did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Four-
All right. I
four-
think, all
4
right.
o'clock PM is probably reasonable. And you can even have it where it's two warnings and then possibly cited to court. I mean, that's the last thing I want is everybody getting fined and filling up the court's time with stuff like this. So.
Okay.
That's right. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Any committee members have any discussion on this? All right, John, we're putting it in your hands to come up with something and bring it back to us.
Okay, and I'm sure glad to see the vice mayor. Hadn't seen her in a long time.
I know it.
Still, I'm
Mr. Chairperson,
checking
the
it.
vice mayor is there to start the finance committee meeting, which is due to begin any moment.
I know
All
we are.
right, good.
We're already done, actually. But listen, any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there are 2 ordinance that I think that they're real easy. Do they need to be approved so they can be voted on by BOMA next week? That's on our agenda. It's item 3 and 4. And if they are, I'm ready to move on both of them. I've studied them and I think they're fine to approve.
Hold on just a second. We may not have enough. Is it Millstone and who, let's see.
No, it's number 3 and 4 on the agenda.
Okay, and that is the transfer of the money. I tell you what I'd like to do, if it's okay. We can go ahead and put this on our agenda for Tuesday. We can go ahead and put it on our agenda for Tuesday. And if it's not, we'll go ahead and put it on we'll ask for it to go ahead and put on Friday's agenda anyway. And if there is some problem with it, we can always pull it for Tuesday night's board meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Okay. Thank you I appreciate you helping me on that. And we'll just wait. And we'll put the first thing we talk about on the agenda for Tuesday night. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, are we going to have a public works meeting Tuesday night before BOMA?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We're going to have one starting at 5:30.
Okay,
So
thank you.
And then we'll talk about it, but we're going to go ahead and ask it to be on the agenda for our Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. So that way we won't skip a beat.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eddie, on that. I appreciate your indulgence on that. Pat, I need a motion so you can go celebrate your 30 with your lovely wife.
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
And there's been a motion and a second. Thank you, everybody. This has been one of the best meetings we've ever had, and it's
Thank
on
you.
Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
John, thank
Thank
you,
you.
brother.
Yes, sir.
All right.
See you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Meeting's adjourned at 6:54.